There is a well-known saying that goes always give the hardest job to the laziest person because they will find the easiest way to do it. What is the best real-life example to this you have seen? I once was a temp at a tiny office on a construction site in around 2003. I was only there for one day while the regular person was on some training. They sat me down and told me that I just needed to copy all these numbers from one program to another. So I selected them, hit Ctrl C and Ctrl V. They stared at me. Turns out about 60% of this woman's time had been spent manually typing numbers from one place to another. Had a manager that would manually delete every email from his work inbox. I'll never forget the look he gave me when I clicked the select all button. That was clearly visible the entire time. There was an overworked lady who worked at my company who could hit shift to copy multiple lines of Excel at once. She saw me do it once and said, "Lady, wait, how did you do that?" Me, "Do what?" Lady, "Copy multiple lines at once." Me, "You just click the first line, hit shift, then click the last line. Why? How have you been doing it?" Lady looks at me in disbelief. "I've been copying it line by line. It takes me hours to do it every week." I took the next few hours to show her a bunch of features in Excel and computers in general. I think I saved her 20 hours per week that day. Similar story at an office I visited recently. One staffer's job required making copies of files and making a few tweaks to the copy. To do this, she'd open each file, copy and paste its content into a new one, reapply the rather complex headers and footers, and save. Dozens of times a day. I showed her how to Ctrl C/Ctrl V from the folder itself. She cried. Edit. "Oh my stars, the silver fairy cometh. Sorry so late, been off grid for a while. Thank you stranger." I work in finance at a large multinational corporation. I feel like a big part of our job is to just stop doing things and wait to see who complains. If someone complains, we keep doing it. If silence, then we call it a controlled drop and put it on our performance review for creating efficiencies. Years ago I was completing a daily report that was saved on the shared drive that 4 different people needed. I skipped it 1 week and no one said anything. Ditto on the second week. Finally, I put a message on the report that said, "If you need this report, please contact the Blue Witch," and I never touched the report again. We were recently cleaning out the shared drive and I found that report 2013 was the last time I input anything. We do the scream test. If something sounds useless, looks useless, and smells useless, we reversibly disconnect, hide, or disable it. If someone rarely screams, we restore it. Nothing required for safety or compliance, and everything is backed up to a flying disk. Servers have been turned off instead of replaced. They'll sit for a while then get melted down. I'm sure the big guys do the same thing with entire racks or even data centers. I worked a summer at a mortgage company as an assistant to the underwriters. My only job was printing documents and then hole punching them to put in folders. They had a super fancy Xerox printer that basically did my entire job for me, but the underwriters at this company didn't know how to click through printer settings to make the machine hole punch as it was being printed. I showed them how to do it, and they resisted it super hard, like they didn't trust it. IDK. So I got to keep my job, but what was supposed to take me all day literally took me about 20 to 30 minutes first thing in the morning. So they started assigning me real tasks and even offered to keep me on to eventually become an underwriter too. Because I was so sharp, that is, I knew how to use the very expensive printer they already had. I was just about to start grad school, so I had to politely decline, but I'm pretty sure they didn't hire someone to replace me when I left. TLDR, they had a printer that already did my job for me, but didn't know how to use it. I showed them. I have a coworker who did some temp work after college. One of her jobs was at some sort of small bank or financial institution, and her whole job was to keep this huge day planner of everyone's meetings and run around reminding people when their meetings were. She tried showing them that they could just use Google Calendars, but they just wouldn't do it for some reason. This happened in 2019. Maybe not the most impressive story here, but I thought it was a great sidestep of effort nonetheless. Co-worker of mine had to get rid of a smaller junk fiberglass boat with no trailer. Our other co-workers are all telling him how much time and money he's going to need to spend to get rid of it, and he's just saying, "Oh, is that so?" He took off one day and sat down on his lawn with a cooler of beer. That day was garbage day. Inevitably, the trash guys roll up. He hands each of them a cold beer and says, "Hey boys, got $50 for each of you if you help me out real quick." They fed the entire 12-foot boat into the packer, crushing 2 feet at a time. Worked as a cashier during the holiday season back when I was 16. The supermarket was selling drinks by the boxes, and at that time, we only had barcode scanners that was at the front of the computer. No gun type scanners existed. I was lazy and didn't want to carry boxes up to the scanner. So I politely asked my customers if I could carve out the barcode from their box to scan and keep. Some agreed, some didn't want to, but eventually I managed to amass all the barcodes needed, labeled them and kept them in a file for easy reference. Apparently some other cashier got green-eyed at my smart move and complained to the chief cashier, who promptly lectured me on, bullshit alert, how it's dangerous for me to scan such barcodes as I might scan the wrong things. She told me to throw it all away and carry the boxes like I was meant to. I mean, I was young so I could, but the other cashiers were older and some were elderly and needed the customers themselves to help carry the boxes to the scanner. But whatever, I guess jealousy trumps common sense. I work in a semi-warehouse environment and we have to track where items are at all times. When we move X item from location A to location B, we had to type out the to and from locations. We do this hundreds of times a shift. I went online to a free barcode maker website and spent about 20 minutes making location barcodes. I save hours a day by scanning barcodes. I did something like that when I worked at a movie rental store. The computers made you sign back in after something like 15 seconds of inactivity. It was so unproductive. After a week or two at the job, I bought some stickers and printed barcodes onto the back of my ID badge. One barcode had my ID, the other had my password. I could scan them both in a second or two. I avoided telling my boss cause I didn't want to get in trouble, but eventually he found out, and when he did, he had me print barcodes for everyone. Just thinking about that computer system makes me mad, and it's been over a decade. At my last job, a truck suspension shop, we did inventory every December, and it was someone's job to count all the washers and screws of every size. It was my first inventory and I casually mentioned that they should just weigh one screw or washer, then weigh them all, and divide the weight to get the count. Everyone looked at me like I had given them the key to the universe. Counting washers and screws went from a day or two to just a few hours. I had an absolute bitch of a boss at a restaurant. This lady was trying to be promoted so hard and was just so extra about everything. She wanted me to count every salt packet, lid, straw, and packet of ketchup and any open boxes. Like I couldn't say 3 boxes and 3/4 of a box. I had to say 3 boxes and 872 salt packets. If I gave the numbers too quick, she'd know I lied. So I'd come up with reasonable sounding numbers and then spend 10 hours playing Pokemon. Eventually I left and went on to bigger and better things. Went by them all years later and extra bitch was still there in the same job, lol. In high school we had to do 4 book reports every year. A friend of mine did his on each Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit freshman year and turned in the same 4 book reports for the rest of his time in high school. You switched English teachers every year so no one ever caught on. I was never brave enough to try the same thing. Was tiling a bathroom floor. One young guy I was working with was cleaning up. When we were done, I told him to take the leftover tile back downstairs to the truck and then went back to cleaning what I was doing. 10 seconds later I hear this huge crash and then a softo, right. He had gone out onto the balcony and dropped them down to the truck, shattering over $100 worth of tile. He said he thought it would be faster. He wasn't exactly wrong. I remember having to peel 20 kilograms of charred eggplant at a restaurant I worked in. I asked the chef if there was an easier way to do it. His reply was, yep, get someone else to do it. I always ask chefs I come across any tips they have about garlic. One recommended sprinkling salt over the chopping board first. This salt absorbs garlic flavoring and you can use it as seasoning. Another said to put a whole bunch in some oil, heat it lightly in a pan in the oven, giving sweet garlic plus garlic oil. The best one ever though was get the apprentice to peel it. I ain't got time for that shit. Be nice to your build engineers, they know how to take the easy road. Here's the full text for those scrolling by. Okay, so, our build engineer has left for another company. The dude was literally living inside the terminal. You know, that type of a guy who loves Vim, creates diagrams in Dot, and writes wiki posts in Markdown. If something, anything, requires more than 90 seconds of his time, he writes a script to automate that. So we are sitting here, looking through his, legacy. You're gonna love this. Smack my bitch up.sh, sends a text message late at work to his wife, apparently, automatically picks reasons from an array of strings, randomly, runs inside a cron job. The job fires if there are active SSH sessions on the server after 9 PM with his login. Kumarasshole.sh, scans the inbox for emails from KumaraDBA at our clients, looks for keywords like help, trouble, sorry etc. If keywords are found, the script SSHs into the client server and rolls back the staging database to the latest backup. Then sends a reply, no worries mate, be careful next time. Hangover.sh, another cron job that is set to specific dates. Sends automated emails like not feeling well / gonna work from home etc. Adds a random reason from another predefined array of strings. Fires if there are no interactive sessions on the server at 8:45 AM. And the Oscar goes to fucking coffee.sh. This one waits exactly 17 seconds, then opens an SSH session to our coffee machine. We had no frickin' idea the coffee machine is on the network, runs Linux and has SSHD up and running, and sends some weird gibberish to it. Looks binary. Turns out this thing starts brewing a mid-sized half-caf latte and waits another 24 seconds before pouring it into a cup. The timing is exactly how long it takes to walk to the machine from the dude's desk. Holy shit, I'm keeping those. My parents were having a summer get together a couple of years ago, and my dad wanted my brother and me to dig a small pit for a bonfire. He handed us 2 shovels and left us to dig. My brother went and started up our roll tractor, drove it across the lawn, dropped the bucket into the earth and drove forward a few feet. The pit ended up a little larger than what we had planned, but once we lined it with stones it was actually a pretty nice pit. Edited my brother and I to my brother and me. A programmer outsourced his own job overseas, paying Chinese programmers 1/5 of his salary to write code for him, while he spent his days surfing Reddit and watching cat videos. His performance reviews praised him for clean, well-written code and called him the best developer in the building. This reminded me of an Onion video where eventually the outsourced workers outsource the outsourced work. There's a story that I've heard a few dozen times about a toothpaste company that had accidentally sent out cases of their product that had a few empty single boxes of toothpaste. The company had endeavored not only to rectify their mistake, but to ensure they did not repeat it. They hired an engineering company that designed a scale and alarm shutdown system. If an empty carton was passed down the production line, klaxons would be triggered, and a full stop would initiate until the offending box was recovered, and an all clear had been entered into the computer system before production could resume. The company paid through the nose, but was ultimately pleased with their failsafe, and the engineers patted each other on the back. A few months pass, and the engineers returned for quality control. The toothpaste company reported zero margin of error for weeks. Turns out, one of the minimum wage hairnet types on the assembly line didn't appreciate the sound of klaxons or working with computers. So, he or she had aimed a large fan at the production line before the scale that blew the lighter empty cartons off of the conveyor belt. Problem solved. My teacher not wanting to grade papers, so he gives us easy shit to do. Had a creative writing teacher whose solution was simply, everyone gets a B+. What's that? You misspelled your own name, but you met the word count? B+. Oh, you poured your heart and soul into this poem and drew from your own real life experiences? B+. Is this short story 2 days late? Well, B+. Wait, you actually wrote an entire epic adventure story 100% in iambic pentameter and the main protagonist is an orphan destined to become the chosen one in order to save his people from the world's greatest evil. B+. Edit. Duck me. This blew up. I guess a few of you can relate. Huh. I read a comment on here a while back about a college kid who picked up an office job over one summer. He became friends with an older lady at the front desk who always needed help figuring out Excel. He kept finding shortcuts for her and eventually wrote scripts for her that took a load of work off her plate. By the end of the summer he had made her job so easy that they decided they didn't need her to do it anymore. They fired her. I was in a similar situation, although no one got fired thankfully. I inherited a job where the last person spent half their time manually typing numbers into Excel. I turned a bunch of 5-hour jobs into 5-minute jobs and made the job really easy. I was only in a 1-year assignment and spent a lot of it automating everything and got a promotion afterwards, so it all worked out. Still though, using technology right can get rid of a lot of jobs. I work in corporate finance and we can do the same stuff with a team of 4 that 20 people were doing 30 years ago. I don't know that I have a specific example, but a buddy of mine and I used to spend our time working out the most efficient way to do our jobs. We used to tell ourselves, I'm not being lazy, I'm just being efficient. It became an almost daily thing. Why are we doing it this way? This is stupid. There must be an easier way. Then we'd find that and implement it. 9 months ago, I'd made my job so easy it was eliminated. Be careful what you wish for. Lmao damn. I'm a supervisor in a maintenance shop. Can't really fire people since it's the military, but I usually pair the lazy guys together with someone that balances them out. I get more work accomplished that way because I'm pretty sure it's a lack of confidence most of the time. If they have that second person who is equally lazy / not confident, they'll bounce ideas off each other and get something fixed. And they have fun while doing it because they are not as stressed out about it and get to bullshit. Sometimes they'll both just be lazy as fuck and scramble away, but 80% of the time it works. I distinguish 4 types. There are clever, hardworking, stupid, and lazy officers. Usually 2 characteristics are combined. Some are clever and hardworking. Their place is the general staff. The next ones are stupid and lazy. They make up 90% of every army and are suited to routine duties. Anyone who is both clever and lazy is qualified for the highest leadership duties because he possesses the mental clarity and strength of nerve necessary for difficult decisions. One must beware of anyone who is both stupid and hardworking. He must not be entrusted with any responsibility because he will always only cause damage. In one of my earlier jobs I spent about 2 months automating everything I did. Thereafter, I spent my days in air-conditioned isolation reading, hacking out entirely unrelated programs, engaging in protracted debates on Usenet, and responding to the very rare client problem. Things seemed to be running smoothly, so I took a couple weeks of vacation. When I returned from holiday I was told that everything had run so smoothly in my absence that my services would no longer be needed. I had lazied myself redundant. The only thing I can take away from this is, do not let your company know that you've automated your job. You've reached the end of this video, the Reddit gods, and I thank you. Please consider liking and subscribing for more top-notch content. Goodbye.